Good evening, everyone. Welcome to District 63's Mentor Mondays. My name is Stephen Shaner. I will be your host this evening. Glad to see everybody out. Just so you know, this will be our 25th Mentor Monday, and we have roughly 13 Mondays left in this year if we decide to do something on Memorial Night, which is a Monday, which I think we probably will. So we'll have 13 more Mentor Mondays to finish out the year, and then we'll see if we want to continue next year. Tonight, we're going to learn about hybrid meetings. We've been doing well on Zoom. Lots of clubs are doing Zoom. A lot of clubs are starting to think about going back in person, but they don't want to leave out those people that aren't quite ready to get out there and meet people in person. Presenting tonight is Paul Arnhold and Will Davenport. Please give them the big hand.
Are we ready?
Go for it, Paul.
All right. So glad that you joined us here tonight. Hybrid meetings, well, there's something that if you're involved with them already, or you think about getting involved with them, it's a little bit of a learning curve. It's worth it, but it's a learning curve just the same. So to start off, how many on the screen tonight already have hybrid meetings in one of their Toastmasters clubs? Okay, there are a couple of hands. That's good. So we're in the right place tonight. First of all, Will and I would like to make an important disclaimer. We don't claim to be the all too experts on this, but we have had some experience. We've made a few mistakes. We've learned from those. And I think we have a pretty good setup, at least at Central Communicators. I know of a couple of other clubs in our particular division that are also doing fairly well on them too. But tonight is about learning together. And also, if someone has had experience with hybrid meetings, feel free to jump in, because all the ideas that we can bring out are going to be better. We're going to cover some basics. And then after that, Will's going to take over, and he's going to share a screen and show us some things on the technical end of things and how to set up a room, for instance. So there are some important factors determining whether to offer hybrid meetings or not. Number one, are the facilities you are currently using conducive to hybrid meetings? That is, not everyone has the perfect setup. Not everyone has a room with access to internet or a TV or a projector screen. And that's the way it is. I was part of an advanced club that for a while we met at a restaurant, and it was not the best environment. There is no way we could offer a hybrid club in that particular environment. So those things can change. And by the end of the night, if you decide hybrid is for you, well, then your club will likely want to make some changes to get you to that point. Some of the other things, do you have access to a large TV? Or does a room have access to a large TV, I should say? Or the other idea, if you have a blank wall and someone has a projector, you can do it that way too. But a TV is nice because it's a nice clear picture. But Will and I have both determined that the larger the screen, the better. We are meeting in a church, and the church is very friendly to us, gave us a huge room, a lot bigger than what we needed. One week they brought in a smaller TV because they didn't understand the importance of a large screen TV, because we want everyone in the room and on the call to feel part of it. And for those that try to just put a laptop computer screen up for the audience to see, that's not good. So try to find a location that has a TV or that you can use a projector screen. The other thing is Wi-Fi available. Some places, they say they have Wi-Fi, but the signal isn't very good and could be interrupted. We want to make sure that whatever Wi-Fi that we're using is solid, so we don't have those interruptions in the meetings. Yes, you can always do a hotspot from a phone, and we'll cover some of those things. The thing is that person with that hotspot going to be at every meeting? So you need that backup plan. We calculated at minimum, you need 2 people that really know what's going on with a hybrid world and to be a backup for each other and to help set up. Okay. Is a person, well, I said that one. Does your club have the human capital with tech abilities? That's an important question, because we have some clubs that maybe we don't. Maybe there isn't anyone in that particular club, especially some of our aging clubs. They may not have someone that is tech savvy. And that's one of the considerations that you have to have. And again, at least 2 people, because life happens. And Will is our go-to person. We also have Lily and a couple others now that we're training. But if Will didn't show up 1 week, especially in the beginning and when we did this, we couldn't have a meeting. Now we can, because we have enough people that we're training along the way. And that takes an extra commitment. Will sometimes comes in, an hour early before the meeting? So depending upon your setup, one of our clubs does it in a half hour because the building opens at 7 and the meeting starts at 7:30. So they have no choice. They have 3 people that put everything together really quick, but it's going to take that extra time commitment. If you said yes to all 3 of those, I would certainly encourage you to start hybrid meetings right away. And we'll get into why in a second. If you can overcome some of those obstacles, I would suggest that you start working towards that now, so that maybe within a couple of months you can start offering them. You know, it's true. It's easier either to have an in-person meeting or an online meeting with such as Zoom or BlueJean or something like that. It's a lot easier to do one or the other. It's a little more challenging to do a hybrid setup, but you know what? It gives you more opportunities. For instance, in Central Communicators, we have a member from New Zealand. That would not be possible if we didn't do hybrid. We had also changed our bylaws with our constitution and bylaws to say that, yes, we are a hybrid meeting, and our members voted on that and were committed to that. That's also important to get the members buy-in into this, because sometimes you could have some obstacles in the way, and the last thing you want to do is get people start saying, well, let's just go back to normal. And you can remind them that we all agreed that we were going to give this a shot. And maybe instead of saying full on for the infinite future, you might want to give it a 3-month trial just to see how it works. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not the end of the world. We're always going to have people that will show up to in-person meetings. And shortly, with the COVID restrictions being lifted up, who knows, maybe as soon as 6 months from now, we'll be back to a normal. But we're also giving up some of those opportunities that sometimes we could miss out. Now, what are the costs and benefits of having hybrid meetings? Now, don't think of the cost necessarily just in the dollar amount, but the cost of human capital and some investment into making sure that everything is set up correctly. I mentioned before an extra time for the members to set up, half hour, but probably likely 45 minutes to an hour to make sure everything's set up. That may change who you decide to have for your sergeant at arms. That role might change significantly. It may be a different type of person that you recruit or nominate for that role. But each club is unique. They all have their different individuals that have the talent and abilities to do that. So, we are going to look for that versus trying to get a particular person in there. It's got to be whoever's in the club that are able to do that. Now, the other thing, you need access to at least 2 laptops. 3 actually work better, and Will show in his slides how that works. We also made the investment of buying a Logitech camera, and that's helped tremendously. And it helps by having the folks that are online being able to see all the audience members in the location. We bought when there was a limited supply. Ours works well, but we wish now we would have went with something with maybe 120-degree viewing. And it's nice if you can get a 1080p. It's not completely necessary, but usually if you have something with that wide of a viewing range, it's going to have 1080p. Those are close to $200. I checked the other day. We paid what, 136, Will? Something like that. And our camera works fine. It really does. We just wish that we would have went to the next step. The other one is, as you're stringing cables along, think about getting longer cables to hook everything up together. Sometimes you're sitting in the room and you just realize that, well, that camera should have been over there, the laptop a little further, but don't limit yourself to the standard 8, 10, 12 foot. No, I don't know what the standard is, 6 foot. Get a little longer cable. They aren't that expensive. And one thing we found very, very useful is we have an external mic that we set about in the middle of the room. It's not the highest quality mic, but it gets the work done, because you've all been maybe in a hybrid situation where it's really hard to hear either the person on the screen when they're talking, if the audio isn't loud enough through the monitor, or when the in-person audience member starts to talk, and it's really hard to hear. If you happen to, now this is bringing it up more the Cadillac end of things, but if your laptop has Bluetooth capabilities, I have, for instance, a small Bose speaker. It's about this big, but it's got big sound. It would totally fill any room. So maybe it's asking people that have those things to bring them along in the meeting, because, face it, and as clubs, we have limited budgets. Plus we have the concern, where do we store all this stuff? Not every club has a lockable closet in it. Sometimes those things have to be brought in by somebody else. And if they happen to bring the wrong car that the camera's not in, you're in trouble. Okay, so is for anyone that does hybrid meetings right now, is there any other suggestions that you have for equipment or things that work for you? I know we had a couple hands up before. Is there anyone that has anything to add to that? I don't see any. Hey, oh, okay. Bert, you're muted. Okay, there you go.
I would just like to add that the place where we started our hybrid meetings, the signal faded out, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But since you're going to have a hybrid meeting, you're going to have somebody sitting at home. You should have you should have them as a host, so that if the signal dumps, there's still somebody there that's controlling the main part of the meeting. Because at the Y, we'd lose signal, and then
Yeah, what do you do?
But if you had somebody sitting at home that was a co-host, they could keep the meeting going until you got back online. And that way you wouldn't dump people. They'd go, oh, you lost signal. Well, they could do table topics or something.
Yeah.
They could do something. But
So
that
I
signal is
love-
that signal is the key thing. It is
Mhm.
beyond the key thing. And I have found when I've tried to do any of this, the more I could get away to direct wiring and the less I could use Bluetooth, the less problems I had.
Okay.
That's the nature of the beast.
That's really great advice. And I guess that's coming later, but we always have at least two people being a host or co-host anyway. I love that concept to have someone online. Plus it involves people online because sometimes they feel that they're not really part of it. And that's going to be coming up in my third section. Now we want to talk about some of the benefits of allowing hybrid meetings, allowing extended membership. I had mentioned the New Zealand 4 Hours at Central Communicators. The Morning Cup has someone from Africa. So those people would not be able to join if we're not for hybrid. The other thing that, let's see, increased attendance. We've noticed that now that we're back in person at the Morning Cup in Maryville, we still get 6, 7 people online. And those are people that probably would not make the trip in to the meeting, but they can still be part of it. Because the more we get people involved on a regular basis, the more engaged they're going to be and more likely to renew. And let's see. Okay, one other example of the beauty of this, it just happened to Central Communicators last week. Flash Black he was the general evaluator. He works on the road and he couldn't get back in time. So he was on his phone, sitting in a parking lot safely, and he acted as a general evaluator. Now that was beautiful. Because I mean, we can always find someone to take on roles because we're Toastmasters. But what if we had guests? That doesn't look very professional when we're trying to scrounge for people at the last second. It's wonderful that we can show the benefit of having a hybrid meeting, and it worked out so well. And you know, that's just one example that I thought of. The other one is allowing, we'll just call it Zoom, there's other platforms, practice with Zoom, looking in the camera instead of on the screen. Those are skill sets that, you know, we've started to appreciate more and more with Zoom, but especially with hybrid, because how many job interviews are going to be in person, at least for the first 2 interviews? They're going to be in a Zoom, probably a hybrid situation. You're going to have 3 or 4 people sitting at the location and then asking you questions. How are you going to interact with them? Is it going to be smooth and feel like it's well done? The other thing is the beauty of being able to record. I do not understand why clubs don't just automatically record every meeting, put it out in the cloud, and then give them a link to it. I mean, it only has to be up for a week if we want. But the beauty is, how many times do we give speeches? We hear our feedback, but it'd be beneficial if we actually saw the speech that we gave and compared it to the feedback. And we all know that we hate to see ourselves on the screen. We're always going to be super critical of ourselves. But if you listen to it like 3 times, you'll probably figure out where the evaluator was coming from. That's great, great growth. Any other benefits that you can think of, especially for hybrid, but some of the benefits even of Zoom, because it's part of the hybrid platform? Anyone think of any other benefits?
Hey, Paul, this is Don.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, and I apologize if you mentioned this, but one advantage I've seen is like the other night with the storms coming through. There are some members who may not be comfortable driving into an in-person meeting, so that would give them an opportunity to stay home and dial in, so to speak.
That's wonderful. Yes, Bert?
I never shut up. Not only that, gee, think about this. You want somebody to come in sick to your meeting and give
No.
everybody the flu or something. So people get sick sometimes, but I could drag myself in. Well, if I got a phone, I don't even have to get out of bed.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to come in and infect everybody with my cold or flu or whatever, my beer disease.
Now, I can't see all 27 participants, so if you have something, speak up. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll have more time for question and answers anyway. If committed, it is important to think hybrid. And part of that, what I mean by that is really put yourself in both places, as if you were on the screen or in the room. I'll give you an example in one of my clubs where the table topic master only called on people in the room because she was in the room. How do you think that makes people feel online? We need to keep them connected. So maybe we start training our members a little bit better. And if they're the table topic master, try to go every other question, either online or in person. It makes people feel more connected. The other thing is, I just lost my train of thought. That's never happened to any of you, I'm sure. But that's an important one. And some of the other things, just rethink how we are perceived. Because sometimes we have guessed either way. How are we going to go out of our way to really make them comfortable and engage? The other thing is that where your laptop is set up, that the person speaking from the floor is behind. The level of that laptop is so important because you want it to be natural, that you can look at the camera on the screen, look up at the audience and back and forth. If it's setting too low or off to the side, you're not going to get that effect. And, you know, if I'm going to be in a meeting, I want to feel like I'm part of the group. I said that one already in my notes. The other beauty, we're really quick, I know I'm jumping back for recording. If someone has to miss a meeting, we send them the link so that they can watch what they missed. Because at every meeting, I'm hoping that we all learn something. And even if they can't be there live, at least they're part of it, so that they're more inclined to come next week. Because we know if members don't show up for 3 weeks in a row, chances are we're losing them. Or 3 meetings in a row, not everyone meets every week. And I mentioned that. So any other suggestions for thinking hybrid to keep people engaged online or in person? Any thoughts?
I'm looking at talking to one of the schools in town that are teaching hybrid anyway.
Yeah.
And to try to partner with them to make a donation so that they purchase and manage the equipment and can set a room up so that they don't feel like we're just using their space as a volunteer thing. They're also gaining some technology they may not be able to afford on their own. So a bit of a partnership.
Yeah, that's great. You know, it just came to mind. We can revamp the youth leadership program a little bit different, can't we? We can still use the core, but also introduce some of these technologies, because it'll help the students in school as well as their communication leadership skill building. That's great. Anything else quick before we turn it over to Will, because I want to make sure I give him enough time? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Will, then you can ask either one of
I
us
have-
questions.
have-
Yeah, go ahead.
One
Go
more
ahead.
question. Has
Yeah.
anybody ever used a meeting owl? It's a microphone with the camera and it's able to migrate the people in the room with the people that are virtual. So the person speaking is on the screen.
I haven't. That sounds cool.
Well,
I've
just
heard of
Google
it.
it. They
I've not
cost
seen
about $1,000 to buy them, but it really integrates everything. It's got everything in the one little tool. But I recommend checking out Meeting Owls.
Okay. Most clubs probably couldn't afford those, but it's cool technology. Is it one person that has it and maybe you can just take a minute to explain it a little deeper? 'Cause it sounds interesting to me. I just don't understand it.
Well, this is why I wanted to partner. My nephew goes to a special school that's K through 12,
Mhm.
and the classrooms are very small. So to partner with this school to be able to help support buying this piece of equipment, it's all you need. It's a tall, slender thing. And with it, it's got a microphone all the way around the exterior. It's probably about 8 or 10 inches tall.
Okay.
And on the top of it is a camera that rotates around and it's voice activated.
So the camera moves like a what do you call the ones that track you?
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
It also does it's a 360-degree camera. So you see everybody around the room, but then if somebody is speaking, it kind of focuses on that person. So if
That's
you've got your meeting room set up like in a U pattern, and you put that in the middle, you would see everybody in that U pattern.
Wow. That's fantastic. All right,
One of the clubs that I'm a member of uses 2 cameras, one to get the room and the
Mhm.
other one to look at the lectern. And they just switch them back and forth.
Yeah.
That's a little cheaper than the owl.
Yeah. And yeah, there's many ways to do it and depending on their budget. Yeah. So Will, why don't you share some of your things, your screen and your presentation, and we'll come back to any general questions.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Before I share my screen, I want to share a few things. I want to reiterate and just share a little bit more about the idea of thinking about your club as a hybrid club. I think that can't be overstated, because in order to create not just a place where the in-person and the folks who are connected through the Zoom platform feel comfortable, but they connect with one another. And I think that can be a bit tricky to create a situation where everybody is able to interact with one another. It takes a lot of intentionality to do that. A small thing that we've had to recognize, the way we have our chairs and tables set up is in a U formation. The chairs were on the outside. Unfortunately, our webcam would not catch those folks on the outside. So we moved the chairs onto the inside, which a very kind member in our club came in early and started moving all the chairs back out to the outside, because that seemed like the more natural formation. And at that point, that's when I had to explain the reason that we're doing this is so that everyone can see one another. And also, I've had a few members in our club kind of intentionally sit off camera. Maybe they don't like to see themselves on the camera. But fortunately, I've been able to have a conversation with them and ask them to sit on, because that's a way to connect. So it does take a different way of conceiving of a meeting to be able to do that in a commitment among those folks who serve and who are a part of your club, to be able to embrace that. I'm going to go ahead and answer a question that Ahmad asked in the chat area. So he asked about privacy with recording the meetings. So a simple way, I think, to handle that, if you upload your videos to YouTube, there's 3 categories of ways that you can publish that. You can publish it as public, unlisted, or private. So if you make it as private, you have to send an invitation to everyone who is going to be able to access this video, and that's super secure. The second, the unlisted, I think is a great workaround, because then you can't search for the video, but if you have the link, you can go to it. So I think that that's an excellent way to handle the privacy issue. If, of course, if your club feels that you want to sign some kind of waiver, you can do that. That would certainly work. All right, so now I am going to share my screen. If you look in the chat area, I uploaded a PDF. You're welcome to open that and have that for yourself as we go through this. So I'm going to start by reflecting on the equipment that you need. And I'm going to suggest some things that I think are essential and some things that could be extras if you are able to do that. So as Paul said, you definitely need at least 2 laptops, one dedicated to the speaker and one dedicated to the audience or the other members who are in person. That way everyone can see one another. The third laptop is the one that you can use to facilitate the meeting. And as Bert said, and I thought that was an excellent comment as well, having that person be remote might be an excellent way to handle that problem, so that folks can stay connected even if you lose your connection in person. But that third laptop allows for someone to be your Zoom master or your online person who facilitates that interaction with the people who are all online, so that they have the ability to chat and connect in the same way that the folks in person do. The webcam, as Paul mentioned, I recommend having a backup for pretty much everything that you need. What I have discovered, and as Paul said, I come early. To be quite frank, there's times when I've come even more than an hour early, not suggesting that you need to do that. But what I've discovered is that if you're putting all this technology to work at the same time, inevitably something will happen. And I cannot tell you how many times being there that early has made it work, so that by the time the meeting started, we had solved that issue. A very quick example, I went a few weeks ago, no TV, the church that we meet at was supposed to provide it, and no access to the internet. But because I had arrived there so early, I was able to find a custodian in the church who gave me the phone number of the right person, who told me where the TV was. I was able to find that. And they had recently secured their Wi-Fi. And so I was able to get the Wi-Fi password to be able to connect. So if you are meeting in a location where things aren't going to stay set all the time, it is really essential to get there early to be able to solve any issues that might arise. Paul mentioned about the Wi-Fi, or possibly even using a hotspot on your phone. Just my personal opinion, I wouldn't depend on a hotspot on the phone, and that is because there's not enough bandwidth, because you're going to need to have at least 2 computers on there. So I really don't think a phone would do the trick. You might be able to purchase a better mobile hotspot that would be able to solve the issue, but I wouldn't depend on just your phone in that case. So you've got your HDMI cable, you've got your flat screen TV, bring an extra power strip. You've got a lot of things to plug in. Bring an extra extension cord so you can reach to wherever you need. And then here are a few optional things. Portable spotlight. So that portable spotlight makes it so that folks can see your face when they are meeting remotely. That's definitely been an issue, and I've gotten that feedback from several folks. One of the benefits of being hybrid early was we got a lot of feedback from people who visited, and they said they just couldn't see our faces. It was all in the shadows because all the lights were directly above us. So we ended up getting a couple of portable little spotlights that we were able to set on a table in front and shine directly onto our faces. It's not the most soft and genteel light. It's rather harsh, honestly, but it does the job of helping them to be able to see what's going on our face. As Paul mentioned, the 360-degree microphone and the additional laptop. So let me zoom out now. So this is just an example setup that you see on the screen now. I like to have the TV a bit away because if you angle it, the person who's standing and delivering the talk can actually see the screen, which can be a little helpful feedback as you're going through the meeting. And then having this table in the middle. So the computer that is on the podium is only for showing the face of the person who's speaking. That's its only purpose. The speaker is turned off, the microphone is turned off. It's just the video. This computer that's here in the middle, what it does is it projects the image to the TV and it also receives the audio. So this is where the audio goes in and connects to those folks who are meeting remotely. And it's really helpful to have it in the middle because that allows your microphone to be close enough to the computer that it needs to connect to and also close enough to the podium where people are speaking. And then I have found a lot of the USB cameras, webcams, have the spot where you can connect them to a tripod. That's really helpful because then you can put it anywhere you want to. Initially, we were actually using the audio in the webcam for our microphone, but we've moved away from that. And so now that gives us the freedom to literally move that camera wherever we need to in the room to get it in the right spot to get as many people in the screen. So honestly, it's been quite a challenge with COVID right now because with people needing to spread out, that makes it even more difficult to get everyone in the screen without making them tiny, little minuscule dots on the screen. And so these little dotted lines are just a reminder of your sight lines to make sure that you look and you see what is actually showing on the screen from your webcam so that the people who are remote can see what you are looking for. If our space lent itself to this a little more, it would be great to have a backdrop behind the speaker, something to keep the distraction of the room. Right now, the way we're located, I love our situation, except it's in the middle of the room. And so behind folks, it's just this grand, open, empty space that is a bit distracting. But, and I'm going to get a little technical now. So you've got your podium and you've got your laptop and you have to tilt it up most of the time. You've got to have it tilted up. If it's up high enough to be a direct look, then you've covered up that person's face and the people who are live in the meeting will not be able to see who's talking. So it's got to be below a little, but because it's tilted up, whatever backdrop has to be high. It's got to go up higher than the speaker's head, a good foot or 2 feet. So if anyone solves that, we at Central Communicators would love to see how you solve that because it needs to be something, it really honestly needs to be mostly above and very little behind the person. So that backdrop is really, really helpful. And
So
then,
that
yes.
laptop that's on the lectern, that is, you're using the webcam inside the laptop for the speaker.
That's correct.
For the presenter, I should say, just okay. What if that laptop had its own camera, like a separate camera pointing at the presenter?
You know, just as I was saying this, if your club were in a situation where you could have 2 webcams and you had 2 tripods, so it's more equipment. But in that case, you could put the tripod so that the webcam is directly at the person and everybody would still be able to see them. But the laptop, you know, it's large, so it covers that whole area. But the webcam could be right in front and you could still be able to see. But again, additional equipment. So I think that this is a big thing. If your club is going to do hybrid, I recommend not trying to do everything that you could do to start. Do enough to get it going so that your club doesn't invest all this money into tools and equipment that you may or may not use in the future. Like Paul said, the 3-month trial. And then if it's going well and you're beginning to gain some folks who are meeting remotely, then invest in the upgrades. Which reminds me, one of the things that I am just in awe about Toastmasters, and especially during COVID, which I think is a huge benefit, is the ability to connect with clubs worldwide. I've visited, and I know many of you have visited, a lot of Toastmasters have visited clubs around the world because of the ability to connect remotely. Well, if you're hybrid, it's a huge benefit to be able to appeal to people around the world. And man, it adds so much to the quality, the caliber of your club to have folks who are international that are a part of your club.
Hi, Will. This is Janet. Can I ask a question?
Ask away.
I'm just trying to understand. So with a setup like this, let's say that you have a prepared speaker who is standing at the lectern.
Yes.
Or it could be a table topics person or whomever, but they would need to stay right there behind the lectern. Am I correct? And not travel during their presentation?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I'm sorry, did you have more to that question?
No, well, that was part of mine, because one of the things that we talk about a lot is coming out from behind the lectern to address the audience and be able to use your hand motions and kind of pace back and forth, but use some movement in the room. And that's why I'm just wondering about that.
So it's a challenge, and I'm gonna say that it's a good challenge to navigate that. So you have to stay, and as we're talking about it, so you've got your box. Here's your box. And you've got to stay in that box with your gestures. I can tell you that just about every speech that is evaluated by someone who's in Zoom and not in the room, they'll mention the fact that gestures are not staying in the box, right? So you have the challenge of appealing to the folks in the computer and in front of you. And you have to balance both. I feel like, honestly, I'm just now beginning to have a natural glance at the camera and connect with folks there, and then bring my eyes up and begin to connect with the folks there. But you really can't move around. And also training your members to come up, and if the laptop is adjusted too high and all you can see is chin and above, to adjust it down. And that's got to become just a natural part of coming to the podium to speak, is to make those little adjustments that allow you to connect.
And that goes back to, I believe it was Nick's comment. It would be nice to have a camera facing the speaker, because that would allow the speaker to do more gestures. The only disadvantage is not being able to directly see who's on the screen to look for that feedback that we often look for. So I'm sure there's a way to do both. But that would be great to have a camera if a club could afford it. You can do it if someone has an iPhone, a newer one. I mean, that's got 120-degree width to it, great recording capacities. That's a possibility. But again, a lot of this, what we do is borrow other people's equipment. The only thing our central communicators owns is the webcam and some cables. The rest people bring. Back to you, Will.
Yeah, thank you. So let me get a little more technical for just a moment, and then Nick, you had a question?
Yes, it would be I was just asking about maybe a minimalist setup. Like what's the minimum outlay of equipment the club might be able to get away with to get started as a hybrid club?
2 laptops, your HDMI cable to connect to some kind of projection. I suppose you could use a projector as well, but I do think that the TV is the easier solution. So you need the TV, the 2 laptops, I do think that an external webcam is pretty essential. I think you're going to be able to have more flexibility with that than you would be able to with the camera built into the laptop to connect with folks.
At the
And
morning-
that's probably it. Extension
Yeah.
cords and power strip, but you could probably manage it on that.
And Morning Cup only uses 2 laptops and a TV. We don't have a webcam. It works. I think Central Communicators, if you visited both clubs, you see a difference in the view of the screen. But to get started, 2 laptops, a cable, and a TV or a projector will do it.
All right. So what I was going to share with you guys is just a little technical work. I think what I've heard from multiple clubs who have tried to do hybrid is audio feedback has been a pretty common experience that folks have had. I'm kind of looking for Bert right now because I'm sure that that's happened too. But anytime you have more than one connection to Zoom at the same time, the audio loops. I bet you've all heard it where it gets infinitely louder until someone turns it off. So what you have to do is the laptop that's at the podium, and if you have a third laptop, is you mute them and you turn off the speaker. Mute and turn off the speaker, both of those. You'll know if you haven't. I'll just tell you, you'll know if you haven't. And the only laptop that remains with audio is the one that's attached to your television and has the external microphone connected to it. So that's the only one that has both audio and speakers. Let me see. So it is possible that you could use a cell phone. I discourage using a cell phone or an iPad just because, especially if you're using Zoom, there are quite a few capabilities that are not there on that version of the program. You're limited in the things that you can do as a result. So that is my personal opinion. If you have a different opinion, that is great. What other questions do you all have?
Hey, if I may ask a question right quickly, is there any particular advantage of, say, using a projector over the television? Rotary Club I recently visited was doing a hybrid meeting. It was very similar setup to this. It's a really good presentation, but they were using a projector and it seemed to work pretty good. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think a projector, so there's definitely one benefit that I see right off the top is you can get it bigger. So you can see the folks easier. But the difficulty is, as Paul said, I don't think that the image is going to tend to be as clear as a result of being on the wall. And it's additional equipment to have to set up to have the projector and whatever you're projecting it onto.
It's also easier to transport than a big TV. So.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone asked earlier, I think it might have been Dean, if anybody takes a TV with them. So we, at our club, we've had a corporate club from the Nashville area visit a couple of times recently. And of course, one of the big benefits that they have is they have a hybrid meeting room. So they have all of those things built in. So certainly, depending on what resources are available is going to dictate the way you go about doing your presentations. I think if you're meeting at a church or someplace that provides your TV or whatever the case may be, building a close relationship with whomever that person is that takes care of it is huge. I would say from November of this past year through early January, we had a short time where we were meeting in person. There wasn't a single meeting where everything was right. But I had a good relationship with the lady from the church. And so every time we would fix what needed to be fixed. And the last couple of meetings, everything has been great. So that relationship with the person who provides what you can't bring is critical. Dean, what's your question?
Muted.
Okay. Sorry, because then my earpiece was muted. The one thing that using the projector provides for you is the portability, especially for people that are meeting in restaurants or things like that. It's pretty tough to get a big enough screen and bring it in and make it a portable setup that you can bring that into a location. I really like, and I want to emphasize that you have on there, I see cords, and if you can you put that back up a second?
Yes, I sure can.
If you wouldn't mind. I really think that's important. I've done a few of these things, not specifically from a Zoom meeting standpoint quite like this, not for Toastmasters, but I've done it for other organizations. And I could tell you, making sure you have extra HDMI cables, power strips, extension cords, chargers. If you're going to have your tablet or whatever, make sure you have a charger there for that type, with that type, whether it's a lightning connector or other things like that. That is really critical, because that's happened at several of the meetings that I've been involved with. And having the right connector. I mean, it's great you got the microphone shown there. Make sure that your microphone you're going to get is a USB microphone, or if it's not a microphone, you're going to have a converter to go from a high end, depending on whether you're using a phono jack or whether it's typically that's something more of a higher grade. It has a special connector. Then you're going to have a converter to go over to a USB port or a mixer of some sort of how you're going to get that signal in to your laptop. You definitely won't get it into a tablet, but if you're using the tablet or your phone as a backup, that is really helpful. You can just use those as secondary cameras in case you don't have it, and turn the sound off. Just like Will said, not using them for the sound is the best approach, because the Morning Cup last meeting or a couple of meetings ago I was at, and that seemed to be an issue. There were several people that had their devices on and it just started feeding back. So if you could choose the option right away that you're going to dial in instead of using the device's sound, that's pretty helpful too. But make sure that you have the right cables and make sure you have backups to the backups.
Yep. I'm with you, Dean. I'm with you, Dean. I wanted to just invite folks, if you wanted to come and check out our club and just see, like Paul said, we're not experts, but we've been trying it. I do encourage you, if you're able to come in person, because the technical setup of it is a big part of making it work. You'll be able to see some of it. You'll be able to see the interactions that folks can have if you watch it hybrid or you watch it online. But if you come in person, you can see the details. And so our club meets on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of every month, 6:30 p.m. And we are here in Knoxville. I can put my information and Paul can put his information if you wanted to connect with us.
Are you going to put that in chat, Will?
I am, momentarily.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other general questions for either one of us?
You're not meeting tomorrow, are you?
We are. Can I tell about that, Stephen, now? Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we had a great person in our group. His name is Elliot Shukart, and he encouraged our club to step outside of our normal club. So we won't be doing hybrid tomorrow. I'll jump to that. We're going to be going to a bar and grill that's not too far from where we're located. And we're going to be giving a taste of Toastmasters. So they've given us a room. We're going to go in Flash Black, who, if you guys know him, is an amazing speaker, is going to give a speech. We're going to do a kind of table topics, and then we'll share about our club and give out a little door prize. So that'll be tomorrow evening at Union Place here in Knoxville, starting at 7 p.m.
I've got a question. If, you know, we've gone up for a year basically with the COVID. We're a little past a year right now, and all these changes took place in a year. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer here, but you know, what have you looked at it for like long term? Because both clubs that I'm in were small clubs and we don't have a whole lot of operating money, but I was just wondering, you know, in a year's time, how much can change? Just think about how much has changed in this past year. And I'm kind of wondering if you've thought it through, is like, this is going to be with us forever, or we go out and spend a lot of money to convert everything to a hybrid club, and then 6 months later, nobody wants hybrid anymore. Everybody either wants in person or back to Zoom, you know? So I don't know.
Let me build that first, if I may. Danny, my thought is, so there's, if it is a convenience thing, if it is only for when people get sick, I could see that there would be times when folks might feel like it's more of a hassle than a help. I think that a part of what makes hybrid something worth committing to is the ability to have members who are not local, who can only connect because you're hybrid. If your club is willing to commit to that you want to extend beyond your local area and you want to stay connected with the folks that are there, then I think it's worth making a long-term commitment. As Paul said, we did have a vote on it, but my personal opinion is if several years down the road we find that our club doesn't want to do that anymore, then we'll just change. We'll just adapt.
You can get long-term members if you just stay strictly with Zoom. You don't have to worry about it. So the advantage looks like to me is that the local members who want to attend in person, that's the only advantage right there.
Yeah. I think that I know in our club, we have enough folks who really want that face-to-face interaction. That's important. That's a part of why
I like in-person meetings, but you know, we've got a lot of young people in our club that really like the Zoom meeting much better, and they're so used to doing it. I'm retired, but they're so used to doing it at work until that's just an everyday thing, you know? So plus they don't have to get out and get up and be at a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday or whatever, you know?
Yeah, both formats certainly have advantages. You look at the cost of doing hybrid, but think about this. What's the cost of not offering those extra opportunities? I think that's where.
How do you calculate that?
It's mostly intrinsic as far as what I enjoy both. If I'm going to do a contest speech, I want to be in person for sure. But if I'm running behind and can't get to a meeting, sometimes I'll have 4 Toastmaster related Zoom meetings in a day, and one's right after another. For instance, if it weren't for the Zoom part, I'm with UT until 7 o'clock, or let's see, that's a different night. That's a different meeting. I have another thing at 7 to go to. I probably wouldn't make it in person over to UT because the other one that I have to show up for. There's advantages to both. And I think it's what this world is going to, that we need to have both formats. But if it's not for your club, don't feel guilted into offering hybrid. It's not for every club. If you have those 3 points that I mentioned, and you have the ability and the personnel and maybe a little equipment, I think it's worth your shot to try it for 3 months. But if it's not for you, don't do it, because we don't want our clubs to be frustrated and members walk away because of that. It's a delicate balance.
Dean, what's your question or comment?
I think that I can see both points of that, because for me, as an area director, there would be no way for me to do what I do if it wasn't for us having Zoom this year. I'm on the road all the time, so it's very difficult for me to get to visit all those clubs in a face-to-face environment. And if we just had it in Zoom, that would be great. But even that requires a commitment on my part to make those meetings. But when you start to say we're going to do Zoom or we're going to do in person, we've already seen a lot of clubs on the decline because you lost the element of face-to-face. That, I mean, I think the numbers speak for themselves. We can see that a lot of clubs, the clubs that have really embraced Zoom have done very well. And the ones that have said, let's do this until we can get back to face-to-face have really struggled because they haven't gone all in, put their chips in the middle of the table and said, we're going to Zoom this from here on out. So you have to kind of decide if there's a value you're getting back from doing a hybrid. But for me, I've got 2 clubs and Danny's in one of them, and and they're on the same night as one of my other clubs. So they're both on the same day, and I have to jump between meetings sometimes when I have to do something or say something, or when they both decide to have open houses on the same night, or they decide to have contests on the same night. I couldn't do it physically. So.
Do we have, as a district, do we have a list of clubs that are hybrid that you're aware of?
No, we do not have a list of all clubs that are currently offering hybrid.
Okay. Because I mean, we offered Central, but that's not convenient for someone that has to drive 2.5 hours to get to us. If we had a list of all the clubs that offer hybrid, then gave everyone an opportunity to show up an hour early or whenever they set up, just to see the setup, because that's the biggest thing right there. And once you learn it, and you know what to plug in, what extra cables to bring in, I think it's doable. So maybe we can put in the newsletter, we'd like to get a list of the clubs that are currently hybrid, and maybe then here's an opportunity here too, is if you're thinking about it, go to our YouTube page and listen to this talk tonight. That's all I have. Do you have anything, Will? Extra?
I heard that Stacy was going to provide a steak dinner to someone tonight. So
Really?
Just kidding. No.
Hey, Will, I think I heard you earlier say something about a backdrop, looking for something that would be a good backdrop. Is that right?
An elevated backdrop.
Well, I got a solution for that. I think I'm from old school. I'm talking about, I did training back in the 70s and 80s, and I've still got a lot of that stuff left from the 70s and 80s, you know, that I did. But I've got one of those portable tripod screens like we used to use overhead projectors and all that with, you know, and it's 8 feet wide and it goes up 8 feet tall, and you can put that behind the speaker. I do some training online and I use that for a backdrop, and you can put that in any size room, and it's big enough and wide enough that you can take it with you in the truck or the car or whatever, and then you can take about 2 minutes, you put that screen up and you got a background no matter how big the room is.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's back to you, Steve. I think we've
right.
exhausted.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. This is some great information. I've got some good notes. Thank you for the handout. And I know that my club is looking at going hybrid at some point. We're not quite there yet, but I think you made a very good point. It's up to each club to decide what's right for them, whether they stay Zoom, whether they go hybrid, or if they're just going to be in person. But and it may change again and again and again. So good stuff, gentlemen. Let's give them a great big round of applause for helping us out here tonight. Let's see, upcoming Mentor Mondays next week. We are going to, it's April 5th, we're going to learn about the new Speechcraft. Dean Phillips, Stacy Thomas, and Don Biddick will be sharing that with us. On April 12th, I will be covering the Distinguished Club Plan and the Club Success Plan, and we'll go that far. real quick, since we are running a little long here tonight, Stacy, anything?
Nope, I don't believe there's anything else.
Okay, Marty, you got anything?
Thanks again to Will with 1L and Paul with 3 DTMs. I really like how the hybrid meetings, it does give flexibility, for our members. It gives our members options, and that's what we want to do. It also increases the reach of our membership. So, and lastly, the best thing, and everyone has said that tonight, it allows no excuses to not attend. So that's always great, unless you don't have power, because I didn't have power a couple weeks ago and I could not attend. But thanks a lot, and thank you to all of our guests. Stephen.
All right. Yep. One thing I learned, I don't ever have to attend a meeting again. I can stay in bed, use my phone. I like that. So.
There you go.
All right, Kim, what do you have for us?
All right. Well, thank you guys for this great presentation. I have about 30 days left of my term as district leadership chair, and I am still looking for willing people in District 63 to serve as area directors. This is a great opportunity for expanded leadership, serving clubs in your area, and like we talked about tonight, attending on Zoom. So if you are interested in an area director role, please let me know. Also, I'm looking for a finance manager, somebody that's good with numbers, likes to, calculate budgets and do concur, all of that. So if you are interested in that, please let me know. I can provide you with some details around that.
All right, thank you, Kim. Let's see, 2 + 3 = 19. Nope, I'm not going to be your finance person. Sorry. All right, I think that'll do it for tonight. Thanks everyone for being here. This was a great session. I hope you learned as much as I did, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week.